Viviana Rojas. Today we'll be interviewing Miss Emily Butterworth.
I was born in Nantucket, Massachusetts. It's a very small island that is kind of near New York City. My neighborhood, in the summer it was very busy. If you know anything about Nantucket, which probably most of you don't, but Nantucket's a very touristed place. So you might see Barack Obama in there in the summer, or I've seen lots of famous people visiting in the summer. So it's very busy in the summertime, but during the rest of the year, like the school year, it's completely empty. So I live downtown, so my neighborhood was actually extremely quiet in the winter because it was mainly guest houses that were closed. But in the summer, it was hopping. People were everywhere. Maybe not as a little kid, I didn't really like all the tourists coming, but once I got to be kind of your age and a teenager, I like the summers a lot better. Yeah, probably most of my role models were actually my family. I have a sister who's a year older than me, and she was kind of the superstar student at my school. Not just in her class, but in like our whole school. So I was a year behind her, so every teacher knew me before I stepped in the classroom. There was really high expectations, which in some ways was bad, but also in some ways made me try to kind of keep up with that expectation. So my sister was definitely a role model, and I would say my mom and my dad both were. My parents were pretty big influences in my life. I think teacher was always kind of an idea of mine to be a teacher, but I studied education in college, so at that time, most teachers kind of came into teaching later, I think, or at least the teachers I've met around here. But I actually went to education when I was in high school or college, and before that it was an idea, but I was also thinking about some other stuff. I wanted to be an ESPN news anchor for a long time, and that's back when there weren't like any women doing it. So, and my mom was like adamant about that. She wanted me to be a sports broadcaster or work on ESPN. I don't know if you guys ever saw it, but ESPN started doing one of those like kind of challenge shows where they had people on to see who would win and be an ESPN anchor. And I was like, that was my new dream show I wanted. Yeah, I would say so. And even more so right after college, because I had a friend who actually wasn't a teacher, and she's not teaching now, but when I was in college, again, I was on this small town, and she was from Ireland, and lots of people would come there from all over the world. And she traveled everywhere. She was going on a round-the-world trip. I didn't really think about traveling as much, like to teach abroad or something like that. And she was adamant that we should travel to Asia, and that blew my mind. And then she said, yeah, let's go to Thailand. I'm like, why would we ever go to Thailand? And then she showed me some pictures on the internet of Thailand, and I was like, oh my god. She was a big influence when I was in college, for sure. I actually just went to her wedding in September when I was gone over one. There were some days when I was teaching 8th grade. I left on a Wednesday right when Miss Sloman started teaching. I went to her wedding in Ireland. She's a close friend of mine even now, but she's probably the reason that I ever taught internationally. So much. The first computer I ever had was when I was in 6th grade, and I was the first of like all my friends to have a computer at my house. Of course, not a laptop or anything like that. And we used to type, like Miss Loman and I joke, but we actually typed on typewriters. I did that once in elementary school. It was horrible because every time you make a mistake, you gotta like take the whole thing out. No cell phones. I had my first cell phone when I was 23 years old. The idea of everyone having a cell phone all the time glued to them is really unusual to me. And I would say the main thing is technology. The way that technology is so much a part of your life, and as a teacher, it's a huge part of class and what kids are using, and it's also can be a distraction at times. But of course there's lots of benefits, but that was just not, it wasn't in the game plan when I was a kid. And like, yeah, things like curfews. We had a curfew. Like, you talk to a lot of people my age, they'll say their parents say come in when the street lights go on, because their parents had no way of calling them or contacting them. So they knew the street lights go on, I have to go home. But it wasn't like constant cell phone calls, checking where are you, what are you doing now. We didn't have them, so it's quite different. I remember one time last year with English with Mr. Davis, he asked you guys to like imagine something about like your favorite spot to go when you hang out.
Yeah.
And I think you said Tony Romo's, and it was kind of, for Mr. Davis and I, we talked about it afterwards, it was kind of sad for us because like this city is, it's dangerous, and for you guys especially, and there's not a lot of places for you guys to just go and hang out as kids, and like you guys can go to the club, but I think for me as a kid, and for a lot of us as kids, we were all over the place. Like I was on my bicycle all the time before I had my driving license, and I went everywhere, all over the place, and hung out with friends. We went to beach parties, and we, hung out downtown, and wherever it was fun to see and meet new people. Restaurants and all that stuff too, but we spent a lot of time outside. I had some friends that were older than me. I played on the basketball team, so I had some friends that were upperclassmen, and our favorite thing to do when we were freshmen in high school was have one of our friends that was like a junior or senior take us out driving. Like that could be the best night. If we did nothing else, that would already be the best night. So we had a friend who was a junior, her name was Sarah McCauley, and she used to like drive, like a bunch of freshmen, would be like 4 of us in her car, and we'd all practice taking turns driving on dirt roads and stuff, like off main roads. So the first time I ever went driving with my parents, my sister was a year older than me, right? And she was kind of a notorious bad driver. The first time I went with my mom, she's like, "Oh my God, you're like this incredible driver." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's my first time. I've never driven before." So that was really fun. And then you have to be 16 and a half to take your test. And being on an island, the driving test only came like once every 3 months. So you hoped it was like right after you turned 16 and a half. So for me, it was like a month after my 16 and a half birthday, and it was winter, and the roads were all like icy and snowy. But I got in the car, and I was so excited. My driver's ed teacher was in the back, and the police officer who, tells you if you pass or fail, he's in the front seat. So I got in, and I turned on the car, and I started driving. He's like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, Emily, you need to put on your seatbelt." And I'm like, "Oh, sorry." So I put on my seatbelt, and my instructor in the back, he was like, "Oh, she's really confident." And he's like, "Yeah, I can tell." And he's like, "She's a basketball player." By the time they finished talking about basketball, the test was over, and I really didn't have to do anything. So it was a success. Traveling abroad has been one of the greatest experiences that I could imagine. You get to meet so many different people and see different places. And when you learn, like in school, you learn all these facts and this information, right? And sometimes it feels overwhelming, but when you go outside and you get to see what happens in the real world, or see people that are actually like what you read about, it makes that education so much more valuable. Yeah, I mean, it definitely changes you. You go home, you guys will notice this when you leave. You go home after you've been away for a while, and your hometown feels small. The big mountain, the big hill that you used to ride your bike up, it feels really small. Your road, everything. And even the people in your hometown might feel, I don't know, kind of like maybe more simplistic or something like that, because you've seen all these different things. And if they don't understand them, it feels like, how do you not know about this? Or don't you want to learn about this? But, everyone has their own interests, so not everyone wants to necessarily learn about the same things you do. So. But it's great. It's great to have that experience, for sure. Sometimes words that students use to describe me really surprise me and make everyone laugh. Like, I like some of them. One of the students described me as modest, which I was like, yeah. And then Miss Nolan laughed for like 5 minutes and said, "You're not modest." So I think in school maybe I'm a little different than outside of school, but outside of school when I'm not teaching, I'm a bit more of a goofball. I like to joke around, I like to have a good time, I like to make people laugh. if I were in the midst of that and saw one of you guys, I'd be like, how's it going? Like, I would change because, you know, not that I don't want to be myself with you, but I want to be a role model as well. And so I like to have a good time, but in school, it's important to know when to have a good time and know when kind of be serious. Exactly. But when I was in school, when I was you guys' age, I was the class clown, I was the goofball, but I also like to work hard. I love school. That's daunting, but I'd say follow your dreams, experience new things. When you have an opportunity in front of you, go for it. Don't wait for things to come your way all the time. Go out and seek them, and any chance you get, take it, because life's short and you want to experience as many things as you can.
Thank you for coming.
No worries.
It's been a pleasure, and thank you for being part of the first teacher.